I cursed the 2023 F1 season. Today we are going to be reflecting on a legendary part of the P1 podcast. And it's the predictions. And within that, the biggest flop. Because we felt like something was happening every time I did a biggest flop. It kind of came true in some way. Sometimes I didn't score points, but a lot of the time I did. And in fact, this got me over the line to win against you, Tommy. So we thought it was a good idea, didn't we, to have a little look back and see just how many times my biggest flop prediction came true and whether I need to start putting some money where my mouth is.
Yeah, it was powerful, particularly at the start of the year. It became a big old meme, and then there was some big old flops from your predictions, and I still would love to know that without your biggest flop, if we just had that segment out, I'd have probably won by about 20 points, because this is where you bagged a lot of points. But fair play. It was funny.
Thank you, mate. Now, we have gone through it all, especially you, Tommy, to work out what happened to each driver, and then we're going to basically judge how powerful the biggest flop curse was. So let's start with Bahrain, where I went for Esteban Ocon.
Yes, so this one, you started very strong, because Esteban Ocon equaled Maldonado's record of the most penalties in a single race. He lined up on his grid box wrong, which got him a 5-second penalty. Then as he came in for his 5-second penalty, the mechanic worked on his car too early, which gave him a 10-second penalty. And then he sped in the pit lane to get another 5-second penalty and then retired with a mechanical issue. I think that one came in quite hard.
That is... I think that's where it begun, wasn't it? Because you were like, well, why have you gone for Ocon for the first race of the season? Just vibes, just feeling in the air that I had. And my goodness gracious me. Sorry again, Esteban.
That was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he equaled the most amount of penalties ever in one race is impressive. We then moved to Saudi Arabia, where I went for Logan Sargent.
So Logan Sargent spun in Q1, then had his best Q1 time deleted because he went over that pit lane line as he crossed the line. So qualified last, which you could argue is not unusual, and then finished 16th. So he definitely flopped a bit. And compared to Bahrain, of course, there's definitely some Matt Powers.
So you, Tommy, with this, said it wasn't a flop, which I felt I was slightly robbed. I think I tried to argue half a point because he did spin in Q1, messed up qualifying, finished a lowly 16th. But I think because there were a few other standout floppers, you weren't willing to budge, which I wasn't happy about.
No, and I think now it's aged even better that it was a no, because Logan finished 20th quite a lot and had a lot of lap times deleted. So
well, you can't do hindsight. You can't be like, well, the 16th actually is one of his best races of the year. But yes, fair enough. I didn't get a point. Whatever. Don't care. Totally over it. Should have been back-to-back points. Australia. I went for Sergio Perez.
Yes, this one was a good one. He got eliminated in Q1 with a technical issue. He ran off into the gravel and started from the pit lane. And then, he pitted on the first lap after a red flag, restarted. He was actually very lucky because he also went off in that restart where it went to count back anyway, which kind of saved him a bit. And he ended up finishing 5th.
This one, his teammates won the race. He'd
won the last race,
a big
of course,
stinker.
as well.
Yeah, so he was off. This was kind of the Perez of like, oh, he's decent. He's winning. He's won a race. He's there. And then of course finishing 5th in the fastest car. This, that, and the other. We kind of argue. Well, I definitely argue because I was trying to get a point. He would have finished in 7th had it not been for the penalties. So I think it was reasonably floppy. But if we look at the whole season, we probably wouldn't have given him a flop.
Flop for 5th. Yeah, he'd have taken it for some of the other races in the season, but this is where it came up. I remember, the reaction of you when he went into the gravel after. We'd already had those kind of moments and we're like, oh my God, you've predicted Perez and he's gone straight into the gravel in Q1.
Yeah, I mean, the reaction was like, I started laughing, but it obviously wasn't laughing because Perez was in the gravel. It was laughing because I'd predicted him flop out of complete vibes. And then it was just a cut to him being in the gravel. I was like, what is going on? So yes, that was, so 2 from 3. It's a good start, you know? Ladies across the nation, this episode is brought to you by Manscaped. Introducing Manscaped's 5th generation performance package featuring the all-new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. Why don't you tell us a little bit more, Tommy?
Their 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade for him to go smooth wherever his heart desires.
Also inside this package features the new Weed Whacker 2.0 ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Soother toner, and 2 free gifts. Upgrade his grooming game to the Ultra Sphere this year by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code P1MT at manscaped.com.
His balls have been through enough. It's time to go Ultra with Manscaped.
We now go to Azerbaijan, where I went for Yuki Tsunoda.
Now, this one hit very quickly because he hit the wall in practice. And I remember we were watching and there's a clip actually from Twitch where I'm like, that better not be Tsunoda. And it was Tsunoda who caused the red flag, but it was only practice. He did get a bit unlucky as well in sprint quali because that was when he crossed the line just as a red flag came out and didn't get to do his lap. So we're like, oh my God, you've cursed him. But then in the actual race, he did end up with a point. So we didn't, he kind of recovered from your curse there.
It's ridiculous, though. It flopped, like the biggest flop
Things
curse.
happened, yeah.
Like, in every single one of my predictions in the first 4 races, something bad happened to that driver. So I feel as though, even though, the point wasn't given here, I feel as though it was working. It was each week. Ocon,
Weird
of course,
things were
horrendous.
happening, yeah.
Logan spun in Q1, then had his lap time deleted. Perez, of course, had that stinker. Yuki Tsunoda hit the wall in practice. We were like, I'm 2 from 4 now, but I feel as though I'm not getting the recognition I deserve here, Tommy.
Well, biggest flop, yeah. If it was like something will happen to this, a bad thing will happen, you'd have been basically like 22 from 22 in the season, I think.
Miami now, where I went for Fernando Alonso.
Fernando Alonso, being the GOAT, of course, could not be hit by the Matt Gallagher curse. Qualified second, finished third, and the biggest memory of this was an amazing meme that someone made where it was all the person going into the room, which was you, and Fernando, Chad Alonso, basically surviving the biggest curse. And this was the only one really from those first 5 where nothing bad happened.
So we then go to Monaco, where I just said I won't go for any big league drivers, and I went for Charles Leclerc because, well, it's Monaco, so it was bound, something was bound to happen.
It did to a point. He got a 3-place grid penalty for impeding, and it wasn't a great weekend. He qualified 3rd, finished 6th, and we actually opened this one up to the fans in the comments, and they decided no.
Which is absolutely disgusting.
But I guess the biggest
the
flop
Monaco Grand Prix so.
for the first time. So actually, you might have even argued half a point for biggest good surprise, even though it was only 6th. But yeah.
But the penalty that he got in qualifying was again like oh no, here we go again. Why have I flopped Charles Leclerc of all drivers for Monaco?
Yeah.
But then, of course, finished 6th. So
still on 5 of 6 where something bad has happened to them.
Yep, not bad, eh?
Not
we now
bad.
go to Spain. Oscar Piastri was my biggest flop for this one.
Looked good in qualifying, made Q3, but then finished 13th, lost 3 places in the first 3 laps. But McLaren weren't very good at that stage anyway, so 13th wasn't exactly a stinker for them.
Nothing really happened for Oscar in Spain. Now go to Canada. Kevin Magnussen.
The curse is back because Kevin Magnussen qualified 14th when Nico Hülkenberg qualified 2nd. And then in the race, he ended up going off track when battling Nick de Vries and then was stuck down the runoff area for 40 seconds and finished 17th. So you came back strong.
That is actually crazy. Yeah, just as we were wondering, has Matt's powers gone? He went for Oscar Piastri and he said no. Then K-Mag, you can trust a K-Mag performance, and I think it was enhanced, wasn't it? Just purely because Hulk had one of the greatest qualifyings we've seen. Obviously, he got that penalty, which meant he didn't start second in qualifying, or after qualifying. But yeah, K-Mag just had an absolute stinker, and that was, as we like to compare to the GIF of the two dustbins, that was K-Mag and Nick de Vries in that race, wasn't it?
It sure was. You came back strong, and then it got even better.
We now go to Austria, where I said Esteban Ocon again.
And I think we even had a conversation of being like, are you even going to get a point if, he doesn't do anything work? Because he had the worst race of all time, or so we thought. In that first race you predicted him. You predicted him for a second time, and he broke his own record for the most penalties earned in a single Grand Prix, where he got 5 penalties in one single race. He got 4 time penalties for track limits and a penalty for an unsafe release, which has still not been broken to this day until you predict Esteban Ocon next time. And he'll go for 6.
I think we all know where Bahrain, my biggest flop's going in 2024. But I think this was the most impressive of the lot, where you just go, as you say, Matt, you've already gone for Ocon at the start of the year, and he's got loads of penalties. How is he gonna beat that? And of course, there was that sort of investigation, wasn't there, afterwards into track limits. And then you just saw Ocon, and then getting however many seconds of penalties that he got. I think Esteban's just like, please
Matt,
stop.
Please stop.
Just stop doing this to me. We now go to Great Britain, Silverstone, where I went for Max Verstappen.
Max Verstappen at Silverstone. I think I also predicted Max Verstappen in this one, which maybe counteracted the flop. Apart from losing the lead at turn 1 to Lando, that's all that really happened. He got back into the lead.
That in itself was I would consider a bad thing happening to Max Verstappen losing the lead.
Yeah, it was like that's only how much you can curse Max Verstappen, apparently, is just to let him lose a slight lead. It wasn't a flop because he ended up winning still.
Nope, so again, I went for a big driver and it didn't pay off for me. Hungary now, where I went for Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda had an absolute stinker in Hungary. Qualified 17th when Daniel Ricciardo had just returned.
Before that, he broke his front wing in practice as well. Do you remember that?
Yes, he did. Yes, good point. So got hit with a bad curse there. Qualified 17th when Daniel Ricciardo had just returned to F1 in his first race and was 13th. And then he finished 15th behind Daniel Ricciardo, who had, like you say, had only just returned. And also, Danny Rick had a problem at the start where he got caught up in that show incident, and yet Yuki still finished behind him. So this one definitely came in. Yuki had an absolute nightmare.
I know drivers aren't supposed to have bogey tracks and stuff, but I feel like Hungary and Yuki Tsunoda, because it wasn't the year before where he finished 2 laps down as well. So I feel like I know where my flop's going for next year again for that as well. So another point. Go me. Now I get to Belgium, where this is the first time I went for a full team. And I went for Haas.
This one went well because Kevin Magnussen got a 3-place grid penalty for impeding Leclerc. Finished 15th. And then Hülkenberg just had the biggest mare ever, where he got a hydraulic problem in Friday Q1, failed to set a lap in Saturday because the team error meant... you predicted a team, and then the team messed up on something. The whole of Haas saw you predicted them and went, oh, let's send him out for quali. Oh no, we've missed the line, which was great from Haas. And then they finished last on track in 18th. And also fair play, because Haas are rubbish, so they have to have it quite bad to get a flop.
We now go to the Dutch Grand Prix with Oscar Piastri.
And he crashed out in second practice. This was the one where we predicted that... You predicted him because we'd just interviewed him, and we'd just interviewed Daniel Ricciardo as well, so it was a choice between Oscar Piastri and Daniel Ricciardo. And in second practice, they were both in the wall. And not great. And of course, it ended up not being as great because obviously Daniel had that broken hand in the end. Thankfully, recovered to continue it in the season, which is good. He actually qualified 8th and finished 9th, so you didn't get the point.
Yeah. So again, something bad happened to Oscar, but he scored a couple of points, and for McLaren, that was actually quite good for the season to score some points at this stage. So Oscar did not get me a point, but still, apologies. We now go to Italy, where I went for Alex Albon.
Nope. No flop at all. Qualified 6th, finished 7th, had a good race. Yeah, I think this might be one of the only ones where just nothing bad happened at all really to him.
Let's now go to Singapore, where I biggest flopped Max Verstappen.
Wow. Yeah, you went for Max for the second time in this one. Definitely came in. He'd obviously won 10 in a row at this point, dominating the season, and he got knocked out in Q2. This one hit hard because they had pace, and I think Max at the end was pretty rapid, but basically the time they pitted, there was the safety car which screwed him because he couldn't pit, and then also the virtual came out just after. So Max could have had a very good race, but not when Matt predicts you biggest flop. And finished 5th, which was his worst performance of the season by a country mile, finishing 5th.
Yep, so I'd warmed up my powers.
Only non-podium.
Activated them at Singapore and gave us the only non-Red Bull win. So you are welcome. We now go to Japan, where I said Carlos Sainz.
This was not a flop. He just finished 6th in a fairly normal race. Nothing really happened for this one. Not really much to report.
Carlos just doing a reasonable job.
The Singapore one was too powerful that you had to have a cool down period to charge up your batteries.
Exactly. And I did charge them up for Qatar. As I went for Liam Lawson.
You did. Liam Lawson, after essentially being the GOAT for the previous 3 races, Liam decided, oh crap, Matt's predicted me biggest flop. And he got knocked out in Q1, spun out in SQ2, spun out in the sprint, and then finished the race last a lap down and 20 seconds behind Yuki Tsunoda, and received a black and white flag as well for 3 track limit warnings. So yeah, he had a shocker.
Yeah, that's crazy. yeah, definitely back after Qatar. And I continued this run of form going into the USA, Austin, where I went for Oscar Piastri.
You did, and he had contact with Carlos Sainz at the start of the sprint, which caused his front wing to get damaged. And then in the main race, he collided with Esteban Ocon at the start, which caused a water leak and forced him to retire.
I'm sorry at this point. I feel like teams might actually pay us to not put their drivers in the biggest flop predictions, because it could actually work out quite well for them in 2024. So our DMs are open. Brazil, I went for AlphaTauri.
Now, this one was looking very strong after the first qualifying. Of course, it was a sprint weekend, so on the Friday they both got knocked out, and we were thinking, how on earth have you done this again? But they were unbelievable in the race and the sprint. Yuki got points in both. Daniel Ricciardo was quick too, and the point that I made here was that the universe got confused with who you actually predicted in what, because Charles Leclerc was your biggest good surprise, and he went off on the warm-up lap. Can you imagine if you'd have gone for Charles Leclerc for Brazil and he went off on the warm-up lap? We would never have heard the end of it. It would have been just wow, you actually need to be banned from doing this prediction now.
Yeah, fair. I think as well, it's difficult to get a biggest flop right when you have a sprint weekend as well. I feel as though
it makes
two
it difficult.
Opportunities for a team, especially if it's a lower team, to do something good. And AlphaTauri, of course, it looked really good, especially the nightmare that they had in qualifying. But they turned it around, so well done. Las Vegas, I went for Max Verstappen.
Nope, you used up all your powers. And,
come on, it was a bit bad. It was it wasn't the best, was it?
Yeah, he wasn't leading the whole race, which actually,
yeah.
After Singapore, there wasn't really a single race that looked like Max was ever gonna, might not win. And particularly when Perez had that perfectly timed stop, of course, when the safety car came out, and it was oh, Perez could actually win this. But no, Max still ended up winning the race. You went for it again, but it's just too strong.
So close. Without that safety car, Charles Leclerc might have won,
yeah.
and then Max Verstappen would have got me that biggest flop, because anything other than first is a flop for Max Verstappen. And finally, Abu Dhabi. We finish off strong with a Valtteri Bottas prediction.
God. Yeah, he had a terrible race. He looked amazing in the practice sessions, finished fourth fastest in both Friday practices. Looked like it was going to be a strong weekend, but he was biggest flop. So he got knocked out in Q1, had a rubbish one-stop strategy, starting on hard tyres, finishing on the mediums, and he finished 19th, which was last on the road. And the most painful thing about this one is that we would have drawn on predictions if I hadn't predicted an Alfa Romeo points. And I nearly changed it because after you predicted Bottas for biggest flop, and I was like, no, biggest flop won't come in again. And it screwed me.
I've just calculated as well. So I scored 10 points, like actual points, over the course of a 22 race season, which you might think, it's just under half. But if you actually think biggest flop is a very specific prediction, and also
you've got to have a bad race when there's so many happen. Formula One now, you don't get many retirements either as well, and things like that. And yeah, the fact that in almost half the races they've warranted having a race so bad, but to actually get that many. And I think the thing that stands out for me is predicting Ocon twice and him breaking 2 penalty records is absolutely insane.
I've just worked it out. So with bad things happening, it was 17 of 22.
From 22. That is insane.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening to this reflection on the biggest flop prediction. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you're surviving the off-season. Don't worry, lots of more biggest flop predictions coming your way in 2024, and lots of other exciting things as well. And we will see you very soon. Bye!
Bye!